I want my money back. Most shoppers know that they can get their money back if they do not like the product they just bought. Most wise retailers offer a money-back guarantee if the customer is not satisfied. The problem with most money-back guarantees is that, in order to get your money back, you have to give the product back first. If you are a sophisticated investor, you want your money back and you want to keep the asset too. That is the reason I love investing. I get to keep what I purchased and also get my money back. That is why Rich Dad said, one of the most important things a real investor needs to say is, I want my money back. I also want to keep my investment. If you can understand this principle of investing, you will understand what the velocity of money means. It means you want your money back as quickly as possible so it can be reinvested to acquire other assets. More than one way to speed up your money. This idea of the velocity of your money does not apply only to real estate. The idea of velocity of money is really a principle or mental tool of the rich. Once you understand the principle, you want to be able to apply it to everything you do. Velocity of money is an important aspect of leverage. Another way of increasing the velocity of money is through knowing the tax laws and using corporate entities. For example, let's say someone owns a business and also owns part of a second business that invests in real estate. The diagram and explanation look like this. Rent expense from the widget company flows to the rental income of the real estate company. This is important because a business is taxed after expenses, while the individual is taxed before expenses. So an individual who rents a house pays for that house with after-tax dollars. The business can pay that rent with pre-tax dollars. The rental income. Assets. Balance sheet. Liabilities. Income. Expenses. Income statement. Widget business. Business. Rent taxes. Assets. Balance sheet. Liabilities. Income. Expenses. Income statement. Real estate business. Rental property. Rental income. Goes to another corporate entity, but this income is now classified as passive income, rather than ordinary income. There is an exception where the ownership of the two companies is the same, where the income must be treated as ordinary income. For example, if you have a business in your home and pay yourself rent, you would have to treat that income as ordinary income. Passive income, if managed properly, can flow to the individual or the business paying substantially less in taxes. As always, we recommend competent tax and legal advice before doing anything like this. A person who manages his or her business and investment portfolio in this manner can keep their money moving faster while paying much less in taxes. If it flowed into only one corporate entity, it would stagnate and be taxed heavily. Looking at the asset columns of both businesses, you notice that there is the asset of the business in one column and the asset of rental property in the other column. In this example, this person's money is being used to create or acquire two assets tax efficiently. That is another example of velocity of money, or money working, rather than being parked. You can't do that. 4 words I often hear when I use the above example in my investment classes are, you can't do that. As you know, these words are words that define a person's reality or context. In my earlier days, I would go into small companies and explain these strategies for employees of the company. At the end of my talks, I would almost always hear, "Great ideas, but you can't do that." The person would often say such things as, "You can't buy real estate that cheap," or, "You can't buy a house without a new mortgage or a banker's approval," or, "You can't own the business and own the company that rents your business the real estate," or, "That might work in America, but that can't be done in my country." I no longer do such investment talks to employees or self-employed people. I only do such talks to people who are or want to be business owners or investors. I leave traditional investment advisors to talk to groups of employees or groups of self-employed individuals, not because of the individuals involved, but because of the collective consciousness of such groups. As stated earlier, the words, "I can't," are often the words that define the quadrant a person comes from. The example used above is done every day throughout the world. In all of the countries I have done business in, it is common practice to buy a building just by taking over the mortgage, but it is done primarily in larger investments. The idea of a business renting real estate from another business owned by the same person is also done all the time. It is common practice. McDonald's uses that very formula. It sells a franchise business to an individual. The individual then pays McDonald's a franchise fee as well as pays rent to McDonald's for the real estate. From Rich Dad Poor Dad, you may recall that Ray Kroc, McDonald's founder, said, "My business is not hamburgers. My business is real estate." Ray Kroc and his team obviously understood the velocity of money and how to use money to acquire more than one asset. Velocity of money with paper assets. The idea of the velocity of money applies to all assets, including paper assets. When someone looks at a stock's P/E ratio, they are looking at the velocity in many ways. When someone says the stock's P/E ratio is 20, it means it will take you 20 years to get your money back, based upon today's price and earnings. For example, if a stock's price is $20 today and it's paying an annual dividend of $1, then it will take you 20 years to get your money back. The Rule of 72. The Rule of 72 inches is another measure of money's velocity. This rule measures the interest or annual percentage growth of something. The Rule of 72 inches is simply dividing the number 72 by the interest or the percentage of gain in value to give the relative speed your money will double. For example, if you receive 10% interest on your savings, your money will double in 7.2 years. If your stock is appreciating in value by 5% per year, it will take 14.4 years to double your money. If it appreciates by 20% per year, then it will take 3.6 years to double in value. During the economic boom of the late 1990s, many financial planners and investment advisors were touting the wisdom of the Rule of 72. A number of years ago, I had one young investment advisor tell me that his portfolio was doubling in value every 5 years. I asked him how he knew that since he had only been investing for 3 years. His reply was, "Because the mutual fund my money is in has averaged over 15% per annum for the last 2 years. I thanked him for his enthusiasm in his attempt to sell me more mutual funds, but I declined. I thought about telling him the story of the bull and the bear. The story of the bull and the bear states that the bull comes up by the stairs, but the bear goes down by jumping out the window. In other words, as Rich Dad would say, averages are for average investors." Playing with house money. One more way an investor can use the velocity of money in their favor is by playing with house money. There are 2 reasons I like small cap stocks. Reason number 1 is because I am an entrepreneur rather than a corporate person. I like and understand the problems of small startup companies and can sense if the business has a chance for growth or not. Reason number 2 is because a small cap stock can double and triple in value much faster than a blue chip stock. Since a small cap stock has a better chance of doubling or tripling faster than many large cap stocks in the right market conditions, it is easier to play with house money. The following is an example of playing with house money. Let's say you buy 5,000 shares of XYZ company for $5 a share. You now have $25,000 in the market. The market shines on you and, in less than a year, the price of XYZ is now $10 a share. You now have a market valuation of $50,000. A greedy investor, which I have been, will say, "The market will keep going up so I'll hang on." Again, an exit strategy is important before getting into the market. Instead of hanging on and just parking your money, one way to increase the velocity of your money is to simply sell $25,000 worth of stock. That way, you still have $25,000 worth of stock, although half the shares in this case, and you have your initial investment back. The remaining shares which have the $25,000 valuation at that time is playing with house money. I use this strategy often, but not all the time. There have been times when the price of the stock went from $5 to $8, not reaching the exit price of $10, so I held on. Many times, the stock has not held and dropped below $5, leaving me with all my money either lost or still on the table. I will admit that the times I have used this strategy of selling shares to recoup my initial investment, I have felt much better about my investment, even though I may not have made as much money, due to the fact that I did pull some money from the table.
You can really dance. Wow, you can really dance. He went. They said we've both been dancing all this time. What a coincidence. You can really dance. Wow, you can really dance. He went.
Bye bye money. There is a short poem that goes, money talks, I can't deny. I heard it once. It said bye bye. I have never understood why people cry about losing money in the investment market. They don't cry when they go to the grocery store and spend money they don't get back. They don't cry when they buy a car and lose money when they sell it. So why should investing be any different? I often hear investors say, you haven't lost any money as long as you don't sell the stock. When I hear someone saying something like that, it often means they bought high and now the price is low and they are waiting for the stock price to go back up. There is some validity to thinking that way, but only in special case situations. A thought opposite to that thought is, cut your losses early. There are times when I have invested poorly, and the price of my investment drops rather than climbs. If the price of a stock drops more than 10%, I will, more often than not, cut my losses and look for something new. There are two reasons I may do this. 1. If my attention is focused too much on the loss and I feel badly for making a bad decision, I will sell. I just want to cut and move on. I know that out of 10 investments, odds are that 2 to 3 will be bad, 2 to 3 will be good, and everything in the middle just lies around like a lazy dog. I will occasionally let the lazy dogs lie as long as they are not losing money. If they become real dogs, I cut and review my mistakes and take the lessons. 2. I love shopping. So even if I have less money to shop with, I am happier shopping rather than buying, holding, and praying that the investment will go back up someday. As I said, most people don't cry when they sell their formerly new, now used, car for a loss. The reason they don't cry is because they're usually shopping for a new car. How long are blue chips blue? There is another investment strategy I often hear, and that is, invest for the long term and only buy blue chip stocks. To me, that is an obsolete idea because it worked in the industrial age, but it doesn't work in the information age. The reason that old strategy doesn't work anymore is because blue chip stocks are not blue chips anymore. For example, if you had invested in Xerox 20 years ago, you would be hurting today, even though it is a blue chip stock. The real question each of us needs to ask is, how long will a blue chip stock be blue? Many of today's Fortune 500 companies may not exist 10 years from now, due to technological changes and other innovations. Blue chip companies, which used to last for 65 years, are now lasting only 10. The old strategy of business is no longer working in today's world. In this age of faster moving technology, a company may rise and fall in just a few years. This speed of change then requires all of us to be more vigilant and to focus on keeping our money moving, rather than just leaving it parked waiting for the market to rise and rise forever. The buy, hold, and pray strategy is okay for the average investor, but it is not a great strategy for anyone who wants to retire young and retire rich. Chapter 16. The leverage of real estate. Investing with your banker's money. I had dinner with a friend and her father the other night. He's a retired airline pilot. The stock market had just fallen another 3% that day and he was very upset because his retirement account was losing all its gains. When I asked him what he thought of the market, he said, "My other daughter called to let me know that I could move in with her if I lost everything." Cautiously I asked, "Do you mean to say that the only investments you have are in the stock market?" "Well, yes," he said. "What other kinds of investments are there? The stock market is the only place I know of. What else is there to invest in?" Diversify your portfolio. The common mantra heard everywhere today is, invest for the long term, dollar cost average, diversify your portfolio, etc., etc., etc. This is a great mantra for people who do not know much about investing. The word I have always questioned is diversify. When I hear someone say they have a diversified portfolio, I often ask them what they mean by that word. More often than not, they will say something like, I have some growth funds, bond funds, international funds, sector funds, mid-cap funds, and so on. My next question is, are they all in mutual funds? Again, in most cases, the response is, yes, most of my investments are diversified in different mutual funds. While their mutual funds may be diversified, the reality is that their investment instrument of choice, in this case mutual funds, is not diversified. Even if they say, I do dabble in stocks, invest in rates, and I do have some annuities, the hard fact is that most people are only in the paper asset category. Why? Because paper assets are easier to get into and manage. As Rich Dad said, paper assets are more sterile. They are neater and cleaner. Most people are not from the B quadrant and will never build a B quadrant business, and most people will not invest in real estate because of the acquisition, liquidity, and management challenges. There are over thousands of mutual funds to choose from in the United States alone. There are more mutual funds than there are companies that mutual funds invest in. Why are there so many mutual funds? Because of the same reasons listed above. They are sterile and often sterilized in the name of protecting the public. The problem the public has is figuring out which of the thousands of funds is best for them. How do you know if the hot fund today will be the hot fund tomorrow? How in the world do you choose the winning fund today for your retirement tomorrow? And if over 80% of your investment portfolio is in mutual funds, is that really diversification, and is that smart? Personally, I don't think so. Anyone who has 80% or more of their portfolio in different funds is not really diversifying. They are really diversifying their portfolio. The tragic flaw of mutual funds. Some of you may be aware of the hidden tax flaw of mutual funds. Unfortunately, there are many mutual fund investors not aware of the mutual fund tax flaw, the flaw that passes capital gains tax through to the investor. That means, if there is a profit and a capital gains tax consequence, the fund does not pay the tax. The investor does. This flaw is especially pronounced in a bear market. There are exceptions, however. For instance, gains on mutual funds held in certain retirement funds are deferred. Let's say the fund has had great success for a number of years. It has bought well and many of the stocks it has picked have greatly increased in value. Suddenly, the market turns down, investors panic, and they begin asking for their money back. The fund must then sell its best stocks quickly in order to give the investors their money. When the fund sells its stock, there are capital gains to pay on that stock. For example, the fund purchased XYZ Corp. 10 years ago for $10 a share, and when they sell it, it sells for $50 a share. So the fund manager did well by picking the stock early, but now at time of sale, the investor must pay the capital gains tax on the $40 profit. In times like this, the investor can lose money because the value of the fund may have gone down while, at the same time, the investor must pay capital gains taxes. So an investor in mutual funds can be required to pay capital gains taxes, even though he has lost money rather than made money. Personally, I do not like having to pay taxes when I have, in fact, lost money. That is like paying income tax on income you did not receive. To me, that is a tragic flaw. The beauty of investing in real estate. My friend's father, the retired airline pilot who thought the only kind of investment is paper assets, is only now finding out about mutual funds. Tragic flaw. As the dinner neared an end, he said, I've lost much of my savings because the share value of my funds has gone down and now I have to pay capital gains taxes even though the value is down. I wish there were something else I could invest in. Why don't you invest in real estate? I asked. Why? What is the difference? He asked. There are many differences, I replied. Let me tell you about one difference that is really quite interesting. The retired pilot took a sip of coffee and said, "Tell me. I'm all ears. In real estate, I can make money, and the government will let me count it as a loss of money," I said. "You mean you make money, and you get a tax break instead of having to pay taxes on the money you made?" asked the pilot. "The government gives me a tax break on my gains rather than making me pay taxes on my capital gains," I said. "The government lets me keep more money rather than pay more taxes. One way is through depreciation, or what my rich dad called phantom cash flow, which is cash flow the average investor cannot see." The retired pilot listened silently for a long moment and finally asked, "Is there more?" "A lot more," I said. "They'll even give me money." "How?" asked the pilot. "If a building is a historical building, the government may give you a tax credit, which is far better than a tax deduction, to improve your investment," I said. "Do you think the government will give you a tax credit to buy more mutual funds?" "Not that I know of," said the pilot. "All I have seen lately is a capital gains tax on money I've never made and, in fact, have lost. It sounds like I pay taxes on money I've lost, and you get a tax break on money you made. Anything else I should know about?" "There is," I said. "You can receive a tax credit for 50% of the cost of improvement related to the Americans with Disabilities Act. For instance, if you pay $10,000 putting a wheelchair ramp in for handicapped people to have access to your commercial building, you could receive the maximum credit of $5,000. "You get a $5,000 tax credit?" asked the pilot. "What if the wheelchair ramp doesn't cost you $10,000 to put in? What if the ramp only costs you $1,000 to build?" "You still get a tax credit for 50% of the cost of the improvement," I said. "But of course, I strongly advise you to check with your CPA before doing anything like this. You want to make sure you know the current regulations and benefits before doing anything." The pilot sat there quietly thinking. "Anything else?" "Much more. Really too much to discuss just over dinner," I said. "But let me give you 3 more advantages of real estate over mutual funds." "Just 3 more," said the pilot with a sarcastic smile. "One more advantage is that the bank will lend you the money to buy your real estate. As far as I know, banks will not lend you money to invest in mutual funds or stocks. They may use such assets as collateral, but only after you have invested your own money to acquire them." The pilot nodded his head and said, "And number 2? "Number 2 is no capital gains tax," I said, "if you know what you are doing." "You mean I must pay capital gains tax on money I did not make, in fact lost, and with real estate you can avoid capital gains tax?" I nodded my head. It's done all the time via an exchange called the 1031 exchange. For example, let's say I buy a house for $50,000, putting only $5,000 down and borrowing the remaining $45,000 from the bank. And let's say the rent more than covers my monthly expenses, so I have cash flow from my investment. "So your money is working for you," said the pilot. "Yes," I said, "and that income is passive income, so it is taxed at a lower rate than ordinary income such as paycheck income and income from savings in your 401k." The pilot shook his head in silence. Earlier in the evening, we had already discussed the differences between ordinary, portfolio, and passive income. Continuing, I said, "After a few years, you find out your $50,000 rental house is now worth $85,000. You sell it for a $35,000 gain, but you do not have to pay the capital gains if you want to put it into a bigger investment." Again the pilot shook his head silently, saying, "In this example, you make $35,000 in capital gains and pay no capital gains tax. I lose money in my mutual funds, and I pay capital gains tax. You receive cash flow and have that income offset by phantom losses and expenses, and you pay less in taxes on the income that you do pay taxes on, because it's passive income, not ordinary income." And
Where's Gamora? Where's Gamora?
Bad advice from advisors. Financial advisors are important. The problem is, many financial advisors are not rich nor are they successful investors. In a major U.S. publication, a certified financial planner had this to say about my advice on real estate. Lots of people have made lots of money in real estate, but primarily in places like California or Connecticut. Our clients who are here in the Midwest haven't experienced that kind of thing. Her clients should fire her. The reason her clients in the Midwest have not made any money in real estate is because they have her as an advisor.
I wanna fly like an eagle to the sea. Fly like an eagle, let my spirit carry me. I want to fly like an eagle till I'm free. Through the ocean.
If you understand real estate, tax laws, and corporate laws, and have a good broker and accountant, you can make money in real estate even though the property does not increase in value or turn a profit from rental income. Her report about property increasing in value only in California and Connecticut is also wrong. If she knew her property market, she would know that the fastest growing real estate markets in America were Las Vegas, Nevada, for small cities, and Phoenix, Arizona, for large city growth. She only heard about California and Connecticut because she only knows what is in the news, and most investment news is about paper assets. She does not know what professional real estate investors know, yet she gives advice as if she does know. As Rich Dad often said, never ask an insurance salesperson if you should buy insurance. Most financial planners are primarily insurance salespeople, not investors. Insurance is a very important investment product, but it is not the only investment product. How to find a great investment. As with any investment, I am often asked, how do I find a good real estate investment? My answer is, you must train your brain to see what others cannot see. The next question is, how do I do that? The answer is, the same way any shopper finds a good deal. At the start of this book I wrote about people who focused on saving by driving from store to store shopping for food bargains. The same is true for real estate, or for any investment. You need to become a professional shopper. 110-3-1. A great strategy for shopping for property is the 110-3-1 method. That means you should analyze 100 properties, make offers on 10 of them, have 3 sellers say yes, and then buy one. In other words, it takes shopping and looking at over 100 properties to buy one property. Kiss many frogs. As you know, Rich Dad loved fairy tales as teaching tools. He loved the story of the princess who had to kiss a frog in order to find her handsome prince. Rich Dad often said, you have to kiss a lot of frogs in order to know which one is a prince. In investing, and in many aspects of life, that statement holds true. Today, I am always amazed when I hear that someone took a job at age 25 and stayed there all their life. I wonder how they know the difference between a good job and a bad job. When I meet a person who decided to be a doctor at age 15, I wonder if they really used reality in making their decision. The same is true in relationships and in investing. Rich Dad said, most people avoid kissing frogs, and end up marrying them instead. What Rich Dad meant was that when it comes to investing in their future, most people do not take enough time kissing. Instead of taking the time to look for good investments, most people act on impulse, hot tips, or let a friend or relative manage their financial investments. Marrying a toad. A friend of mine recently came to me and said, I took your advice and invested in a rental property. Curious, I asked, what did you buy? I bought a nice condo near the beach in San Diego. How many properties did you look at? I asked. 2, she said. The broker showed me 2 units in the same complex, and I bought one. About a year later, I asked how her real estate investment was doing. I'm losing about $460 a month, she replied. Why so much? One reason is because the board that runs the homeowners association raised the monthly maintenance fee. The other reason is that I did not know how much rent per month I could collect. It was a lot lower than I thought, she said a little sheepishly. I've tried to sell it, but I found out that I paid $25,000 more than the market is willing to pay. I don't want to lose money every month, but I can't afford to lose $25,000 by selling it for less than I paid for it. As Rich Dad would say, that is the price of not kissing enough frogs. If you don't kiss enough frogs, you can wind up marrying a toad. Because my friend did not do her homework, she wound up marrying a toad, an expensive one. How do you evaluate a good real estate investment? Experience is the greatest teacher. Outlined below are 10 very important lessons my friends and I have learned along the way. In addition, I will outline several other resources which may be helpful to you. The price of not going shopping. When people ask me how I learned to find a great real estate investment, I simply say, you need to go shopping. I practice the 100-10-3-1 formula for finding a great investment. Over the years, Kim and I have looked at and analyzed literally thousands of properties. When we are asked, how did you learn so much about real estate? We simply say, we have looked at thousands and thousands of investment opportunities. We have also made hundreds of offers to buy property, many offers that were laughed at. The point is, with each property we looked at and each offer we made, our knowledge and experience about the property market and human nature grew. When we are asked, what do you do when you don't have any money? The answer is the same, go shopping. In my investment seminars, I often say, when you go to a shopping center, no one asks you if you have any money. The retailers want you to shop and browse. The same is true with most investments. Shopping, asking questions, and analyzing deals is how I got my education. What I learned about investing cannot be found in a book. Just as you cannot learn to play golf from a book, you cannot train your brain to see investments others cannot see from a book. You must get out and go shopping.
If you want it, you already got it. If you thought it, it better be what you want. If you feel it, it must be real. Just say the word and I'ma give you what you want.
Hindsight is 20/20. My friend who married the toad could have learned a few valuable lessons if she hadn't decided to say, real estate is a lousy investment. You can't make any money in real estate. When I asked her what she had learned, she angrily said, I should never have listened to you. The market has changed. You cannot make money in real estate today. There is a saying that goes, hindsight is 20/20. The problem is, you do have to turn around and look behind you. My friend did not look and learn. Even after I complimented her for taking action, she was still convinced that real estate is a lousy investment, which means her foray into real estate is extra expensive because she failed to learn from her priceless mistakes and lessons that could have made her smarter and richer in the future. That is the price for having a context that says, mistakes are bad. If she had a context that said, I've taken action, I've made some mistakes, and now I can learn from those mistakes, she would be a much richer person. People who must be perfect, or cannot allow themselves to make mistakes, are often people without much 20/20 vision. They are the people who make the biggest mistake, which is to fail to learn from their mistakes. The lessons my friend overlooked from this one simple investment are: look at more properties. Take your time. There is more than one good deal. Too many people buy because they believe the deal they have found is the only deal in the world. Analyze the rental market as well as the purchase market. Talk to more than one real estate salesperson. Be careful of investing in condominiums. Condominiums most often have a board of directors made up of homeowners. Homeowners and investors do not always see eye to eye. Most homeowners want to keep their property nice, so they spend excessively on maintenance. While it is good to keep up your property, an investor loses control over that very important area of investing, the area of expense control. If expenses are out of control, that also affects the future sales price of the property. Never buy expecting the price of the property to go up. The property should be a good investment in a good economy and in a bad economy. As Rich Dad always said, your profit is made when you buy, not when you sell. Don't invest emotionally. When you buy your own personal investment, it is okay to get emotional. When you buy a property for investment purposes, emotions can blind you. My friend was more excited about the beach being near the property than by the return on investment. She looked at the beach rather than the financial statements. There was not much she could do to improve the property. One of the ways you can make a lot of money is by having control over changing, modifying, or improving the value of the property, something you cannot do with stocks or mutual funds. Many times, just having a garage or an extra room can greatly multiply the return on investment. She did not learn from this experience. Although a relatively expensive lesson, she could have turned the cost of this lesson into millions of dollars if she had been willing to be humble, learn, and try again. Instead, she would rather say, "You can't make money in real estate." Mistakes improve your vision. By investing the time to analyze thousands of investments, my vision slowly improved. Each time I made an offer to buy a property, I learned something, even if the offers were laughed at or flatly rejected. Each time I arranged financing with a banker, I learned something. Each time I bought a property, I learned something new and valuable, even if I lost money on the property. Today, the accumulation of all those lessons, good and bad, is the education and experience that make me rich and allow my wife and me to make more and more money in real estate. Great investments are seen in your mind's eye, and nowhere else. In the real world, there aren't, for sale, signs that say, "Here is a great deal." All the signs say is, "For sale." It is your job to train your brain to see a great deal and to also negotiate a great deal. That takes dedication and practice. What everyone can do. As promised, I stated that everyone can do what it takes to become rich. The thing that everyone can do is go shopping for real estate. If you and a partner will agree to look at 5, 10, 20, or 25 properties a week, even if you have no money, I promise you that your vision will improve. After analyzing 100 deals, I know that you will find 1 or 2 investments that will excite you. When you are excited about becoming rich, your brain shifts into another context and you begin to seek new content that can answer the question, how do I raise the money so I can get rich? Everyone can do this, even if they do not have any money. This is all Kim and I do on a regular basis. Now that we have a little more experience, the process of analyzing properties goes faster. In the best and worst of economies, we have always managed to find a great deal. We don't always buy them or put offers on them, but the process of looking for investments and analyzing them keeps our minds sharp and it keeps us in touch with the abundance of opportunities to be found, if only you would just go looking for them. One last point. Investing in real estate, or any investment product for that matter, requires more than buying one thing and expecting that one product to make you rich. In real estate, if Kim and I have a plan to buy 10 properties, that means we need to look at 1,000 properties. Of those 10 properties, we expect 2 to be great investments and 2 to be dogs, investments that we could lose money on. These are generally sold immediately. That leaves 6 investments that we either have to improve or sell. Regardless if it is real estate, stocks, mutual funds, or building businesses, the ratios tend to remain the same. A professional investor knows this. Rewards that others missed. Every fisherman has a story of the one that got away. Every real estate investor has a story of the one he or she found, the one that others missed. The following are 2 stories that are written for the purpose of inspiring you to begin looking at your first 100 investments. Turning problems into opportunities. Story number 1. A few years ago, Kim and I were traveling in the mountains, a few hours away from our home. We had decided to take a few days off and enjoy the peace and solitude of the forests. As we always do, we stopped at a real estate office and looked at what they had for sale. The agent showed us the usual overpriced properties that we passed on. Then in her sales book, she had a run-down little cabin with 15 acres of land listed at only $43,000. I asked her why it was so underpriced. Her reply was, "It has a water problem." "What kind of water problem?" I asked. "The well does not always provide enough water. It is intermittent. That is why it has been for sale for years. Everyone loves it, but it just doesn't have enough water." "Take me to see it," I said. "Oh, you won't like it," she replied, "but I will take you there." About half an hour later, we were walking this lovely piece of forested land with a lovely old cabin sitting on it. "This is the problem," the real estate agent said as she took us to the well. "This well and land does not have enough water." Nodding, I said, "Yes, this water problem is serious." The next day, I went back to the property with a well expert from the area. He looked at the well and said, "This problem can easily be solved. The well produces enough water, but it produces it at different times. All you need to do is add an extra holding tank and the problem is solved." "How much is a holding tank?" I asked. "A 3,000-gallon tank will cost you $2,300 installed," he said. Nodding, I went back to the real estate office and made my offer. "I'll offer the seller $24,000 for the property." "That's really low," she said, "even with a water problem." "That is my offer," I replied. "By the way, when was the last time an offer was presented?" "It's been a long time," she said. "I believe it's been more than a year." That night, the agent called and said, "I can't believe it. Your offer has been accepted. I can't believe they accepted your price and your terms." "Thanks," is all I said. In my head and heart, I was jumping up and down with excitement. The seller had not had an offer in more than a year and was sick and tired of paying to make repairs to the house. The seller had accepted my price, my down payment of only $2,000, and the terms of only paying him the balance in a year. In other words, I got the property for a small down payment and no payments for a year. The next morning, I met with the well expert and asked him to install two 3,000-gallon tanks. The water problem was solved for less than $5,000. A month later, Kim and I went to stay in our new cabin, with lots of fresh water. As we left town, we put the property up for sale. We listed it for $66,000 and it was sold 2 weeks later. The problem was solved, and the property is in the hands of a young couple who now have their dream home in the mountains.